Thanks to my good friend Larry Hankins, I've been nominated to do the P.O.T.P challenge, and I will be reviewing DNA Design Susanoo. Before we get to the figure, let's do a quick box review. And the box looks spectacular. Now let's get on to the figure. And out of the box, Susanoo's great. Now Susanoo is based on a G1 Decepticon pretender named Bludgeon, who is a swordsman, as you see here. Now this is based on the Revenge of the Fallen Voyager Bludgeon mold. They've done some improvements, and I'll show off the two figures together in size comparison time. But man, does he look good with all the painted detail, the orange, the green, even the face looks okay. Now in the box, he comes with a vast amount of awesome accessories. I have to say, the instruction book is very detailed and very clear to see all of the figure. It's not super far away, it's close up with colors, maybe a bit of shading, but for what they're doing, this might be one of the best instructions I've seen for clarity. Now, I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but the actual cardboard insert could be a nice little backdrop for Susanoo. You get two of these small antennas for tank mode, which I'll show later off once we're done with the transformation. Now, along with his normal face, he comes with an extra scully face, which is okay. They both look alright, but I prefer the normal version. And to attach it, you pretty much simply have to peg it. Just be careful of the sharp edges around the corner, because those are pretty sharp, so just be careful. And off you go, extra face! Now he comes with a giant sheath and giant sword that you slide out of the tank barrel. Now you can slide the sword in the sheath, or you can have him tab the sword into his hand by flipping out the little tab provided into the forearm. Or you could flip out a peg on either hip and store the sheath on his hip. Now you can have him hold his giant sword with both of his hands, which looks really good. He also includes two small dagger swords, which you can tab in either hand, or you can store inside of his backpack. As a general note, you do not have to have the backpack on his back. It's just merely there to store it. You can take it off if you want, and it also helps improve the articulation on this figure. Now his gun is really cool looking. The cool part about this is that the little gun actually can separate to form two cannons and a gun for the tank mode, so you can attach it to tank mode to make it more realistic, which I'll show off later in the review. And you can tab this into his hand as well, and it looks really good. And if you don't want to use his gun, you can store it on his backpack. For some reason, he comes with these round circle bits. He gets a total of 4, but I have no idea what they do. For his articulation, you get a ball-jointed sort of neck, which gets you quite a bit of good range in his head. You get a shoulder joint that moves quite upwards and outwards. You have a friction joint arm of some sort with a nice elbow that gets you more than 90 degrees. And you get two swivels on that elbow as well. The wrist is on a ball joint. The thumb is on a ball joint with two pins for two different joints. And all the fingers are on ball joints with two additional joints. So you can get some really good finger action poses with him. He has a nice waist swivel if you remove the backpack and move the bit out of the back. You have a ratcheted hip joint that moves forward that far, that moves out that far. You have a double jointed knee, which gets a really good range. You have a ankle rocker, a ankle tilt, and the foot has an additional joint that allows it to bend upwards. And as a note, he has little rubber pads on the bottom of his feet, which is really nice to keep him nice and stable. And I didn't catch this earlier, but he has a thigh swivel and a knee swivel. Now, out of the box, he comes with battle damage paint apps. Now it's time for a good old size comparison. Here he is with Generations Drift, Generations Sergeant Cup, Masterpiece Blue Streak, Masterpiece Soundwave and Laserpeak, Skyward Sword Figma Link, and yes, a review is coming soon. And finally, Revenge of the Fallen Voyager Bludgeon. Now they did a lot of changes to them to make him look different. Now how about we say we do a transformation? This is gonna be fun.
Don't forget this.
And he is finally in tank mode, and he looks gorgeous. He's got a few little painted details here and there, but he looks like a mean, gruff, rough tank, just like I would want Bludgeon to be. The treads don't really roll or anything, they're just there for decoration, which kinda sucks, but it's alright by me. Now his turret can rotate 360 degrees on a nice little soft ratchet, which is really cool, and I'm glad that it can do this. You can also flip up the small antenna on the back of his tank and add 2 more small antennas. This looks alright and more like a realistic tank, but it's not something I care to do, so I keep these off normally. Now, before we get to pros and cons, I'd like to tell you that this challenge, the POPT challenge, is actually trying to take a bad figure and make it sound better. So this whole review I've been trying to play it up, but I probably didn't do my best. So that's why I've probably been really, happy, nothing really too bad. So we're going to get to the pros and cons now. The pros are, he looks really good in both robot mode and tank mode. They nailed the look. The look is just like perfect. It's perfect, bellissimo, whatever you want to call it. It's good looking. It's a good looking robot. The instructions for what they are really nicely well detailed and show the figure in its entirety. They did a really good job making sure they actually show the figure cleanly and everything, and instructions are pretty easy to follow in terms of that. Now I'm not going to waste your time because I'm going to list all the cons right now and talk about them quickly. One of the main issues is the plastic quality doesn't feel great. It's close to Hasbro plastic quality, but not quite there. It's a bit higher than that, but it just feels really off and hollow, and just the plastic quality just doesn't feel right. The transformation is not fun. I mean, it is like annoying to do. Some pieces are not tolerance well. It's a bit difficult to get some spots in some places. It's just not fun at all. The joints are not tolerance well. I don't know what it is. Some of the joints are really tight. Some of them are just a bit off in some way. The joints are just off. Not all the joints, but quite a few joints are just not tolerance right. Some of the pieces pop off, like the fingers and the panels, especially the fingers. The fingers pop off almost every time I try to pose that figure. In fact, when I was doing this review, the panel on the arm kept popping off so much. After I was done, I left that one popping panel back in the box because I was just done with it. And when I got this figure out of the box, he had paint damage on his foot. That is like unacceptable. And the paint rubbed inside the box, I don't know what that's about, but that is super, super, super disappointing. Now, some of the other issues I have are the transformation was so frustrating. When I was doing a photo shoot, I actually broke the little peg off. It can still transform just fine, but I was super upset that actually happened. That I was so frustrated, I just rushed it and I broke that piece off, which is partly my fault.
All around me are familiar faces, worn out.
I noticed during this review that 2 of the treads have a cracked piece in the exact same spot, which is super, like, odd and weird. It doesn't affect anything, but it's still disappointing. My biggest gripe was I was doing poses for a photo shoot, and when I was trying to do a knee bending down samurai pose, it actually marred some of the plastic underneath the tread, which is downright mind-boggling. It's so weird, and I can't even get the other side of the tread, which has a crack in it, up all the way to show you the plastic marring, which is insane. And the craziest thing about this figure is it costs $125, which no go. Like, there's a lot of issues on this figure, and it was super, super hyped up, and it turned out to be a big, big failure.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now!
And considering I don't like this figure that much, I've decided to come up with a new segment called The Box of
Trash!
The box of trash is when a figure is so bad it just needs to be thrown in the trash. This figure could have been amazing. This figure could be great, but it's flawed by QC issues that just makes the figure unplayable. It's more of a statue than a collectible figure, which bums me out so much. So Susanoo, you go in the box of trash. I'd like to thank Patriot Prime Reviews for creating the POPT challenge because it was kind of fun to do, and thank you Larry for nominating me. For those who want to do it, you can do it. I really don't have anyone to nominate. So the next review will be Master B Shockwave, so let's get on. What do you mean my camera's not working? I have Larry to thank for all this fun I'm having. Thanks, Larry.